Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of the World Report with me, Arjun Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. The tragic death of Suchir Balaji, a former OpenAI researcher and whistleblower, has taken a new turn. In a post on X, Balaji's mother has alleged that her son's death was not a suicide as ruled by the authorities, but a quote-unquote cold-blooded murder. Her claims have added fuel to the ongoing controversy surrounding Balaji's passing, further raising doubts about the official narrative. Now, in her post, Balaji's mother has revealed that the family had hired a private investigator and conducted a second autopsy, which contradicted the police's findings. She highlighted unsettling details, including signs of a struggle in Balaji's apartment and blood spots in the bathroom. The family's demand for an FBI investigation is expected to put further pressure on authorities to re-examine the case. Emergency workers sifted through the wreckage and investigators collected evidence at the site of the deadly South Korean plane crash that killed 179 people. Fire crews were also joined by police on Monday morning at the Muan International Airport, south of Seoul, where a Jeju Air passenger plane smashed into a concrete wall after an emergency landing. Now, the 15-year-old Boeing 737-800 jet was arriving from Bangkok when the crash happened. Workers have retrieved the flight data and cockpit voice recorders of the plane's black box, which will be examined by the government experts and investigating the cause of the crash and fire. The United States is sending air accident investigators to South Korea after a Jeju airplane crashed while landing at the Muan International Airport, killing all but 2 people on board. The team of investigators from the U.S. includes officials from the National Transportation Safety Bureau, the Federal Aviation Administration, and Boeing, which manufactured the 17-year-old aircraft. As investigations are underway, mourners grieved and laid flowers at a memorial center set up in the South Korean city of Muan on Monday following a plane crash, which killed 179 people a day earlier. A Jeju jet airliner skidded off a runway on Sunday, slamming into a concrete fence and bursting into flame after its landing gear apparently failed to deploy. All but 2 of the 181 people aboard were killed in one of the country's worst aviation disasters to date. The Boeing 737-800 plane arrived from Bangkok and crashed while attempting to land in the town of Muan, about 290 kilometers south of capital Seoul. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev has said that the Azerbaijani airliner that crashed last week was indeed shot down by Russia, though unintentionally. He has criticized Moscow for trying to, quote-unquote, hush up the issue for days. The crash killed 38 of 67 people on board. The Kremlin said that the air defense systems were firing near Grozny, the regional capital of the Russian Republic of Chechnya, where the plane attempted to land to deflect a Ukrainian drone strike. Aliyev said Azerbaijan made 3 demands to Russia in connection with the crash. Listen in.
Birinci, Rusya tərəfi Azərbaycandan üzr istəməlidir. İkinci, öz günahını etiraf etməlidir. Üçüncü, günahkarları cəzalandırmalıdır. Cinayət məsuliyyətinə cəlb etməlidir. Və Azərbaycan dövlətinə və zərər çəkən sərnişin və ekipaj üzvlərinə təzminat ödəməlidir.
Syria's de facto leader has said it could take up to 4 years to hold elections in the country and that he plans to dissolve his Islamist group that led the country's insurgency at an anticipated National Dialogue Summit for the country. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or HTS leader Ahmad al-Shara made the remarks in an interview with Saudi television network Al Arabiya. It comes almost a month after a lightning insurgency led by the HTS overthrew President Bashar al-Assad's decades-long rule, ending the country's uprising-turned-civil war that started back in 2011. Russia has claimed taking control of another settlement as part of its ongoing offensive in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. while Ukraine, on the other hand, has reported repelling multiple Russian attacks. Now, the Russian Defense Ministry said in a briefing that its forces captured a village some 12 kilometers south of the city of Pokrovsk, a key front in Moscow's operations in the area, over the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces has reported 133 battles on the front lines as of Sunday afternoon, with the Chernihiv, Kharkiv and Sumy regions being continued to be attacked by Russian forces. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has said he is awake and recovering well after a successful prostate removal surgery at Jerusalem's Hadassah Medical Center. It added that the Prime Minister has been moved to an underground fortified recovery ward. Meanwhile, Netanyahu's defense lawyer on Sunday requested that the Jerusalem District Court cancel the hearings in which the Prime Minister was scheduled to give testimony in his criminal defense trial this week. Netanyahu began his testimony as the first witness for the defense in his trial on the 10th of December and has testified in court for 6 days so far. Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani met with a Hamas delegation headed by a senior official, Khalil Al Haya, in Doha on Saturday to discuss possible ceasefire in the war-ravaged Gaza Strip. At the meeting, the two sides spoke about the latest progress in ceasefire negotiations and discussed how to promote negotiations, apart from ensuring a clear and comprehensive agreement to end the ongoing latest round of the Palestine-Israel conflict. Former US President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100 after roughly 22 months in hospice care. The Carter Center said the 39th President of America died Sunday afternoon at his home in Georgia's Plains, where he and his wife, Rosalind, who died in November 2023, lived for most of their lives. The center added that he died peacefully, surrounded by his family. US President Joe Biden broke from his family vacation in the US Virgin Islands to remember Carter, recalling his predecessor as a role model and a friend. America and the world lost a remarkable leader with Carter's death, Biden said, adding that he had spoken to several of Carter's children and was working with them to formalize memorial arrangements in Washington. Listen in.
I think I've spoken to all the children. Maybe some I just got off the phone with. I think there were, I don't know how many on the phone, but I think. And I've spoken to some of the friends of the family. They're helping with the services. And my team is working with his family and others to see to it that he is remembered appropriately here in the United States and around the world.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to implement the toughest anti-US policy less than a month before Donald Trump takes office as the next US president. Trump's return to the White House raises prospects for high-profile diplomacy with Pyongyang. During his first term, Trump met Kim 3 times for talks on the North's nuclear program. Many experts, however, say a quick resumption of Kim-Trump symmetry is unlikely, as Trump would first focus on conflicts in Ukraine and West Asia. Now, North Korea's support for Russia's war against Ukraine also poses a challenge to efforts to revive diplomacy. Sticking with the US, homelessness in the country has jumped a staggering 18.1% this year, hitting a record level. The dramatic rise has been driven mostly by a lack of affordable housing, as well as devastating natural disasters and a surge of migrants in some regions of the country. More than 770,000 people were counted as homeless in federally required tallies taken across the country during a single night in January 2024. The US Department of Housing and Urban Development, or the HUD, has said in its new report. Now, the jump comes on top of a 12% increase in 2023, which the HUD blamed on soaring rents and the end of the pandemic assistance. The 2023 increase was also driven by people experiencing homelessness for the first time in years. A Pakistani paramilitary soldier was killed and 7 others wounded in cross-border exchanges of fire with Afghanistan's forces over the weekend. This, while hundreds of Afghans continue protesting against the deadly airstrikes that sparked the clashes to begin with. Sporadic fighting, including with heavy weaponry, erupted overnight between border police forces on the frontier between Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province in Pakistan and the Khost province in Afghanistan. 11 clandestine graves with the bodies of 15 men have been located in southern Mexico's state of Chiapas over the weekend. Now, this is the same region where a dispute between the Sinaloa and the Jesulco Nueva Generacion drug cartels is taking place. Chiapas governor posted on his social media channels that the findings come as a result of a raid in the city of La Concordia near Mexico's border with Guatemala. He said 4 people connected to the case had been arrested with weapons and drugs. Croatia's incumbent president Zoran Milanovic has thanked his supporters after winning the most of the votes in the first round of the presidential election held on Sunday. However, he faces a runoff against a ruling party candidate to secure another 5 term. With nearly all of the votes counted, left-leaning Milanovic won 49%, while his main challenger, Dragan Primorac, a candidate of the ruling conservative HDZ party, trailed far behind with just 19% of the votes. Though the presidency is largely ceremonial in the country, an elected president, however, holds the political authority and acts as the supreme military commander. Mikhail Kaveshvili, a hardline critic of the West, has been sworn in the next president of Georgia on Sunday. Now, this comes amid a political crisis after the government froze European Union application talks in a move that sparked major protests across the country. Outgoing President Salome Zhuhashvili, a pro-EU opponent of the ruling party, said in a defiant speech to supporters outside the presidential palace that she was leaving the residence, but that Kaveshvili had no legitimacy as president, which is a mostly ceremonious position again. Election officials in Chad have begun counting the ballots on Sunday after a day of voting in the parliamentary and regional elections. Now, the parliamentary election is the first in more than a decade in Chad and comes months after the junta leader, Mohamed Idriss Déby, won a disputed presidential vote that was meant to return democracy. Déby took power in 2021 following the death of his father and longtime president Idriss Déby Itno, who spent 3 decades in power. The main opposition is boycotting Sunday's vote after accusing authorities of not overseeing a credible electoral process. The oil-exporting country of 18 million people, among Africa's poorest, had not had a free and fair transfer of power since it became independent from France in the 1960s. And the Indian Space Research Organization is launching its space docking experiment, also known as the SPARDEX, on board a PSLV rocket at 10 p.m. local time on Monday evening. The in-space docking technology would be essential for taking up India's ambitions in space, including sending humans to the moon, bringing samples from there, and also building and operating the country's own space station, or the Bharatiya Antariksh Station as it's known, a cost-effective technology demonstrator mission for in-space docking. ISRO's space docking experiment, if successful, would make India join an elite list featuring China, Russia, and the United States. Peru's Navy said on Saturday it rescued about 30 fishermen who had been stranded at sea as giant waves hit the country's northern coast. Many of them struggled to bring their boats back to Apaculpo Beach in the Tumbes region throughout the weekend. Defense Minister Walter Astudillo followed the rescue operations from an army helicopter to fly over the most affected by the giant waves in Tumbes. The swells began battering the north of the country on Friday. A strong storm system is threatening to whip up tornadoes in parts of the U.S. Southeast a day after severe weather claimed at least 2 lives as twisters touched down in Texas and Mississippi. Strong storms moving eastwards are expected to continue producing gusty, damaging winds, hail, and even tornadoes through Sunday. That is according to National Weather Service meteorologist Frank Pereira. Footage obtained by Western media shows what looked like a large funnel cloud traveling through the town of Mississippi's Brookhaven on Sunday. It's time to slip into a short break. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. Elon Musk has acknowledged the flaws in the H-1B visa system, which grants highly skilled foreign workers the ability to work in the United States. Now, Musk admitted the program was broken and called for significant reform to address concerns about its misuse. In a series of posts on social media X, Musk responded to criticism of the H-1B visa system, particularly claims that it allows the hiring of low-wage foreign workers, especially in the tech industry. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said her agency will need to start taking extraordinary measures or special accounting maneuvers intended to prevent the nation from hitting the debt ceiling as early as the 14th of January this year. In a letter sent to congressional leaders Friday afternoon, but once those measures run out, the government risks defaulting on its debt unless lawmakers and the president agree to lift the limit on the U.S. government's ability to borrow funds. Shares of South Korean budget carrier Jeju Air have hit their lowest on Monday after the deadliest air crash in the country's history that killed 179 people. Jeju Air shares traded down 8.5% after falling as much as 15.7% earlier in the session to 6,920 won, the lowest they've been since 2015. Now, the shares slide on Monday wiped out as much as $65.2 million in market cap. Indian Grandmaster Koneru Hampi has pulled off a sensational turnaround in New York to be crowned the FIDE Women's World Rapid Championship, clinching her second title in this tournament. Hampi began the tournament with a loss, bounced back on day 2, and eventually rose to the top on day 3 from a crowded field at the top of the standings. 2024 has already been a sensational year in chess for India, and Hampi added to the list of achievements by being crowned the World Rapid Champion in New York. She had previously won the title in 2019. And while preparations are underway for London's much-anticipated New Year's Day parade, the event, which will be headlined by singer Peter Andre, will see thousands of performers entertain the crowds along a 3-kilometer route through the city's West End on the 1st of January. The free event kicks off at 1200 hours local time near the Green Park station and runs to the Parliament Square via the Piccadilly Circus, Regent Street, Trafalgar Square and Whitehall. Organizers say there will be just under 10,000 performers in the parade. Well, that's all we have for you today. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care and have a wonderful day.